debunk a myth real quick. All students do not learn better face-to-face. In fact, over the last year, more and more children have found out that they actually prefer learning online. There's less distractions, less wasted time, less bullies, etc. We can continue to go on and on with all the great benefits of doing online teaching. However, on the teacher end, you have to make this experience as fun and engaging as possible. If not, you're gonna end up with this. So today, grab your pencil, grab your pen, and allow me to share with you 5 online strategies that will completely transform your online teaching experience. Hey fun people, welcome back to Everything Aja. If you're new here, hi, my name is Aja. Here on Everything Aja, I help teachers just like you bring the fun and excitement back to learning. And I do this by giving you fun games, fun activities, and of course, fun tips and tricks, strategies, videos like this one. If this sounds like you, then make sure that you like this video, subscribe down below, and go ahead and click the bell in order to get notified each and every time I upload a new video. So today we are talking all about how to make the online teaching experience as fun and engaging as possible. Online teaching can be complicated because you don't have your students right there in front of you where you can kind of see what they're doing. Instead, you're working through the internet. But as stated earlier, that sometimes this can actually be the best experience for a child. You just have to learn how to do this right. So let's jump right into tip number 1. Tip number 1 is while you're planning out what lesson is you're going to teach, you're going to always think about engagement. When you're always thinking about engagement and your entire lesson is centered around how to get every child engaged, then you're automatically going to end up with a product or a lesson that is engaging and fun to all your learners. Now, I see this all the time. Taryn, what did you get for this answer? Then the teacher waits for Taryn to try to respond. Taryn, are you still here? What did you get for this answer? Then they wait even longer. Taryn, go ahead and do number 2. We're waiting on you, babe. Now, more time has now been wasted. And then the crazy thing about that is, once the student gets to the computer and then does the problem, they get it wrong. And then guess what you have to do? Taryn, can you explain to me what you did to get the answer 5? I got 20, so show me what you did to get 5.
Now you have wasted even more time.
And quite frankly, what are all the other students doing? They stopped paying attention because Taryn wasn't paying attention, so why should I? Or they just simply walk away from the computer altogether. Or this is the other one I see. They minimize the call and they hop on Minecraft. The truth of the matter is, this is not engagement. Yes, you got Taryn to answer one question, but the truth of the matter is you just lost all your other students and your engagement level actually dropped instead of increasing. So when I say always think about engagement, I'm talking about engagement of all the students. Write this down. First, you're gonna think, what can everybody do? While you have that question on your screen, every child must have the opportunity to actually practice that problem or answer the question. How could you get every student to answer the question? That's the first thing that you're going to want to do when you're thinking and planning out a lesson with engagement in mind. The second thing you're going to think about is how can everybody show me their answer? Instead of just waiting for Taryn to hop online and show you his answer, you're going to want to think, what platform or how can I get everybody to simply show me their answer? One easy way, no matter what platform you're using, is to have every child drop their answer in the chat box. The third thing you're going to want to think about when you're always thinking about engagement is how can everybody correct their answer. With online teaching, you're not there to really kind of show the kids exactly what they did wrong each and every time. So you're going to want to actually put the learning back on them. You want them to figure out exactly what it is that they did wrong or what it is that they could have done right. So if Taryn gave you the answer 5 and Molly gave you the answer 7, and you see that half the class is split between 5 and 7, instead of you doing the problem and giving the answer, you can have all the kids rework the problem and see if they got the same answer or if they got the other answer. You could also maybe only have 2 kids redo the problem, 1 kid that got 5, 1 kid that got 7. Then everybody can see exactly where the misconception occurred and then correct their own answer. Another thing I really love doing when it comes to kind of correcting their answer and helping each other is once all the kids drop their answer in the chat box, you can actually say, if anybody gets an answer that is not your answer, I want you to actually comment back to that student and give them feedback of what they can do in order to get the correct answer. Now this really adds an extra layer of accountability, because not only do you have your kids answering the questions, you're then making them correct others and explain how to actually do the problem. This really amps up the engagement with online teaching. Alright, so speaking of engagement, it is now time for tip number 2. Tip number 2 is Nearpod is your best friend. If you are doing online teaching, your best friend needs to be Nearpod.
Go best friend, that's my best friend, that's my best friend. Yes, Nearpod, yes, Nearpod.
So Nearpod is your best friend. I'm not gonna go all the way down to how to work Nearpod right now. In fact, I did an entire video. I'll link it right here, and you can also see the thumbnail right here. In that video, I actually give you an entire tutorial of how to create your own interactive Nearpod lesson. So make sure you watch that video for the tutorial. But with Nearpod, you're actually able to see all your students at the exact same time work out different problems. When you're doing live lessons, you can literally see what every child is doing, and you can give every child on the spot feedback. This is a game changer for online teaching, and I don't think teachers use it enough when they're teaching online. If you've never used Nearpod, Nearpod is a platform that allows students to answer questions, play games within a lesson, watch videos within a lesson. They can also write on worksheets, graphic organizers. Everybody can have the same access to a PDF file. So if you have a book that's online, you save it as a PDF, your entire class has access to that book. So it can really save you money on materials and allows everybody to have equal access and opportunity to do certain tasks. Nearpod is a must-have. Of all the platforms I've ever used, Nearpod is my jam. Now my third tip with online teaching is proximity is everything.
Everything, people, everything.
Even online, proximity actually matters. You know when you're teaching face-to-face, how you have a kid that's off task, and instead of saying, hey babe, put up your phone, you simply walk up to that student, put your hand on their shoulder, and you just keep walking, and that student naturally puts up their phone, or if they're sitting there passing notes, you just simply stand right next to them. You don't have to say anything, and guess what they do? They stop passing notes, duh. It's because proximity is a game changer, especially when it comes to getting kids to do things on task. So I know what you're thinking. Okay, Aja, that's my problem. I'm not face-to-face with my students, so how can I do this online? Well, I'm here to show you. Just like we do in teaching face-to-face and how we kind of walk over to a student, that's what you'll do when you're online. So there's 2 things that you're gonna wanna do that kind of amps up proximity. The first thing that you will do is have all your students turn on their camera. Yes, I do know that sometimes if you are recording a lesson, it is kind of illegal to force kids to make them turn on their camera. But if you don't have to record your lesson, you can actually say, I need everybody to turn on their camera. This way you can actually see what kids are actually doing. That brings me to the second way you can use proximity online, and that is by actually calling on students. So just like with parents, you know your children, right? I know mine in and out of the classroom. And with children, you know which kids are paying attention, which kids aren't paying attention, which kids just might have accidentally flipped to Minecraft on the side browser. You know those kids. So imagine you're in the classroom with those kids. How often do you need to walk over to their desk? That is how often you would actually call them online. So if you know about every 10 to 15 minutes, Taryn gets off task, then every 10 to 15 minutes you'll say, Taryn, did you get this answer? Taryn, can you read this sentence aloud? Taryn, can you do this? And you flip that experience into a positive online experience. You can also even have like online class jobs that will allow you to be able to call on kids a lot more. Now the fourth strategy I'm going to actually dive into, something I see teachers mess up all the time when it comes to online teaching. But the fourth tip is over exaggerate the how.
The how, people, the how.
In your notes right now, go ahead and capitalize how, H-O-W in big capital letters, because it is the how that you must express and get through all the way to the other side of the internet. When face to face, you can literally spend hours getting a child to understand the how to do something. But when you're working online, your time is very limited and you must get that child to understand the how in a very short amount of time. You do this by
modeling.
And no, I do not want you to waste your entire online experience with your children modeling how to do something, but kids need to see it, and repetition is the key, and practice makes perfect. So if they don't see it over and over and over again, the chances that they're going to be able to replicate it and do it all over again is going to be very slim. So instead of using your entire class to model over and over how to do something, create a simple video and send out that video link, and that way your kids can actually see you do the how at their own time. Now, when it comes to modeling online, it is not as simple as just showing a child how to do something. When you're actually showing kids how to think online, I need you to actually think out loud. You have to actually do a whole entire think aloud. That means stating out loud every simple idea that's going on in your head in order to do the problem or answer the comprehension question. So before you even do the lesson, you could actually write out, okay, what are all the steps that I need my children to do in order to get the answer? Then during the lesson, those are all the steps that you're gonna actually do the thinking out loud for in your lesson. So if you were doing 2 plus 2, you could simply say,
okay, the first thing we're gonna do in order to answer this question, I'm gonna try to visualize 2 objects. So let me write that down. 1, 2. Now I have 2 objects. I see that the sign is an addition symbol, so I know I'm gonna be putting 2 groups together. Well, right now I only have 1 group of 2, so I'm gonna look at the second add-in. Now when I look at the second add-in, I see that the second add-in is actually another 2. So let me draw 2 more objects. Now I have 2 objects over here and 2 objects over there, and I'm going to put them all together, and then you can count out loud. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I have 4 total objects. So 2 plus 2 equals 4.
So once you model and think aloud one problem, you can then go back and write out the steps. This way kids actually got to see the problem done, they heard you think aloud, and now they get to see a list of the steps in order to get from the problem to the solution. This is also the exact same when you're doing reading comprehension. Only instead of actually writing out the objects, you can use your highlighter feature and go back to the text and highlight your evidence. Don't expect that kids can just see what you're doing and imitate, because they can't. They need to have the entire picture. So now that you've actually demonstrated exactly what it is that you want them to do and how you want them to think and how you want them to actually process the question or problem, you are ready for tip number 5, is have a resource center. Now I have to say resource center because it can vary based on what your school district uses, what you have access to, where you live, etc. So I'm just gonna say have a resource center. And what I mean by that is, you know, you have a house, like you go home every day and you have everything you need in your house. You have your food, you have your refrigerator, you have your bed to sleep in, you have your shower. That is how you want your resource house to be. So when you're not live online with kids, they need to be able to go home in order to find everything that they possibly need in order to be successful in your classroom. So this is the question I want you to think about. Like, this is your essential question. Where can my students find the resources and materials? I'm gonna say that again. After the lesson, where can my students find the resources and materials? What will be your resource home? How can they access the needed materials without emailing you? Do you know how bogged down you're going to be getting emails every single day from parents because they don't know where the worksheet is that you told Tommy he needed to do for homework, or where they can access a video to see exactly how you added 2 + 2. They need some sort of home that has all your resources within it. So when you do a lesson, you actually want to supplement that lesson. This is another tip, so go ahead and write this down, with videos and resources. So if you just taught 2 + 2, then you should have a video. It can be a LearnZillion video or a YouTube video that goes over exactly what you just went over with your children in order for them to go back to refer to. Kids really get the most of it if you do a video. Like, that's their go-to. If you do a video, it's actually more likely that a child will actually watch the video than if you just add a BrainPop video or a LearnZillion video. Now, I do want to debunk this myth real quick. Emailing daily tasks or just simply adding a link to the chat box is not as effective as you guys think. I've heard plenty of teachers think, well, I just added the link in the chat box, that's it. Or I email my students every day what they need to do. If a child missed an assignment from back in February, they're not gonna go through every email that you sent them every day of the school year, but they're simply gonna email you to ask you, hey, that assignment I missed, where is it? If you drop a link in the chat box, do you really think that child's gonna go back to that February lesson and try to find it in the recorded lesson? No, they're not gonna do that. They're gonna simply email you. This makes more work for you in the long run, and also it makes things a lot more complicated and frustrating on the parent and student end. If you're getting value out of this video, give it a big thumbs up down below, and go ahead and comment below which one of these strategies are you gonna take away. Like, what is your I can go ahead and implement this now takeaway from this video? So the last thing we have to discuss is this whole resource home thing that I'm talking about, because there are a lot of different online platforms. There truly are. Let me know down below in the comments, what is your resource home? Like, what is your place that your students go to get everything from your class? Do you have Microsoft Notebook? Do you have Google Classroom? Those are some of the ones that you can use. You can also do things such as Seesaw, Flipgrid. You could be fancy and actually create an entire website that has all of your resource in it. But where is your online resource home? And if you don't have one yet, go to one of the ones that I just listed. Just browse through each one of them until you find one thing that you want to try, and stick to that one thing for at least a few weeks in order to figure out if it works or not for you. Because the key to this is to stick with it. Be consistent. Whatever it is, you have to stick with it. If uploading the resources daily is way too much for you, because it can be a lot, just do weekly. Like, once you do your lesson plans, you say, okay, what are my kids gonna need to do, or what are they gonna need access to during this week? And at your resource home, it is actually based on week. Train your students and train your parents to go to your resource home before they email you. This also will eliminate a lot of miscommunication. You know they say happy wife, happy life. Well, I'm here to tell you a happy teacher is a keeper. Y'all get it? A happy teacher is a keeper. So if you've never used Nearpod, make sure you check out this video, because I break down all the things you need to know about working Nearpod. And if you want even more teaching resources, I have you right here